Dr. Jin-Ho stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the most incredible sight he had ever seen. Earth hung in space like a blue marble, but it was surrounded by a metal storm of activity. Thousands of ships moved between Earth and the Moon. Construction platforms the size of cities floated in orbital space. The sky was full of sparks and flashes as welding torches worked day and night. "It's been 6 weeks since the request came in," said Captain Sora, joining him, at the window. She was a small woman with short black hair and tired eyes. She had been working 20-hour days since the mobilization began. "I've never seen anything like this." Jin-Ho nodded. "Neither has anyone else, not even in the history books." Below them, the moon's surface was being carved up by massive mining machines. Entire mountains disappeared every day, turned into raw metal for the war effort. New factories appeared overnight, built by automated systems that worked without stopping. The quiet, peaceful moon that Jin-Ho remembered from his childhood was gone forever. "The aliens keep asking for updates," Sora said. "They want to know when we'll send the 10,000 soldiers and 200 ships they requested." Jin-Ho laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Did you tell them?" "I tried," Sora said. "Ambassador Hyun-woo says we should let them see for themselves when we arrive." Through the station's communication system, they could hear the constant chatter of coordination teams. Voices called out numbers that would have been impossible just months ago. Factory Complex 12 reports completion of Destroyer Batch 47. Mining Platform Zeta needs another 1,000,000 tons of titanium. Volunteer registration centers report overflow capacity in all sectors. Jin-Ho pulled up a data display on his tablet. The numbers were almost too big to understand. 12 million tuians volunteers signed up in the first month, he said. "We had to stop taking applications." Sora shook her head. "The aliens think we're struggling to find 10,000 soldiers. They offered to lower their requirements if we can't meet them." "What? Did Hyunwoo say to that?" He thanked them for their understanding and said Earth's industrial capacity was adapting to meet the challenge. Jin-Ho laughed again. Through the window, he watched another batch of warships launching from the orbital shipyards. Each ship was the size of a small city, covered in weapons that most galactic civilizations had banned as too dangerous. These were not the cargo ships the aliens had asked for. "Adapting," Jin-Ho repeated. "Is that what we're calling it?" The truth was more complicated. When Ambassador Hyunwoo had sent the alien request back to Earth, something had awakened in humanity. Not just the government or the military, but everyone. Ordinary people quit their jobs to work in the new factories. Retired engineers came out of retirement to design weapons. Children collected scrap metal for the war effort. But it was more than just enthusiasm. Earth's leaders had been planning for something like this for decades. Hidden facilities all over. The planet suddenly revealed themselves. Underground factories that nobody knew existed began producing ships and weapons. Technologies that had been kept secret were finally put to use. "The Asteroid Belt project is ahead of schedule," Sora said, checking her own tablet. "They've converted 67 asteroids into mobile bases." Jin-Ho whistled softly. The Asteroid Belt project was supposed to be impossible. It involved moving entire asteroids out of their orbits and turning them into floating fortresses. Each one was bigger than most alien space stations and carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. "What about the Jupiter operation?" Jin-Ho asked. So-Ra quote-s expression became serious. "That's classified above my level. But I heard General Mi-young say something about harvesting gas giants for exotic matter production." The thought of that made Jin-Ho uncomfortable. Harvesting gas giants meant taking them apart for their materials. It was the kind of project that could change the entire solar system. But these were the kinds of decisions being made every day now. A communication alert sounded through the station. "All personnel, please prepare for incoming priority transmission from Earth Command." The main display screens around the station activated. General Mi-young appeared, a stern woman with gray hair and cold eyes. Behind her, Jin-Ho could see the massive command center that had been built inside a mountain in Korea. Hundreds of people worked at stations covered in displays and controls. "Status report," General Mi-young said. "Current mobilization is at 60% completion. We have exceeded all projected timelines." Numbers began scrolling across the screen. Jin Ho read them with growing amazement. 50,000 warships, completed or nearly completed. Weapons production at levels that consumed the output of entire planets. Personnel training programs that had turned civilians into soldiers in weeks instead of years. Industrial conversion is proceeding smoothly, the general continued. Civilian manufacturing has been successfully redirected to military production. Resource extraction from the outer planets is meeting all requirements. Sora leaned closer to Jin Ho. Resource extraction from the outer planets, she whispered. They're strip mining entire moons. The general's image was replaced by footage from various parts of the solar system. Jin Ho watched automated factories on Mars working at impossible speeds. He saw space elevators on Earth carrying materials into orbit faster than ever before. He saw construction platforms building ships so large they had their own gravity. Personnel update, General Mi Young continued. 12 million volunteers have completed basic training. Advanced combat programs are producing specialists in xenobiology, alien technology analysis, and deep space warfare. Jin Ho realized that the basic training the general mentioned was nothing like traditional military training. The volunteers were being taught to fight enemies that could consume planets. They were learning to use weapons that could crack moons in half. They were preparing for a kind of warfare that had never existed before. Equipment status, the general said. New technologies have been successfully integrated into standard loadouts. Antimatter weapons, gravity manipulators, and temporal disruptors are now standard equipment for all combat units. Sora grabbed Jin Ho's arm. Did she just say, temporal disruptors? Jin Ho nodded slowly. Temporal disruptors were weapons that could affect the flow of time itself. Most civilizations considered them too dangerous to even research. But humanity had not just researched them. They had mass-produced them. The footage changed to show weapons testing. Jin Ho watched a demonstration where a single bomb erased an entire asteroid from existence. Not destroyed it, not broken it apart, but completely removed it from reality. The space where the asteroid had been was now empty, as if it had never existed at all. Logistical update, General Mi Young continued. Supply chains have been established across 200 systems. Forward operating bases are under construction at strategic locations throughout the galaxy. Jin Ho felt a chill run down his spine. 200 systems. The aliens had asked for help evacuating 12,000 worlds, but humanity was already building bases across 200 star systems. They were not just preparing to help. They were preparing to take control. Final update, the general said. Timeline for deployment remains on schedule. All forces will be ready for galactic deployment in 4 weeks. The transmission ended. Jin Ho and Sora stood in silence, looking out at the construction happening around Earth. What they were watching was not just a military mobilization. It was the transformation of an entire species into something the galaxy had never seen before. The aliens think they asked for our help, Sora said quietly. They think they're getting 10,000 soldiers and 200 cargo ships, Jin Ho replied through the window. They watched another group of massive warships launching toward the edge of the solar system. Each one was equipped with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Each one carried soldiers trained to fight enemies that consumed worlds. Each one was part of a force so large it would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. An alarm sounded through the station. Attention, all personnel. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Coalition. The display screens activated again. This time it showed the familiar faces of Queen Zilnara, Prime Echo Kelmore, and General Vextar. They looked even more worried than before. Ambassador Hyunwoo, Queen Zilnara said, "We have detected unusual energy readings from your solar system. Our long-range sensors show significant industrial activity." Hyunwoo's voice came through the speakers. "Yes, Your Majesty. Earth is preparing to meet your requirements." Prime Echo Kelmore leaned forward. "The energy readings suggest construction on a massive scale. Are you building more than the requested 200 ships?" There was a pause. Then Hyunwoo's voice returned, calm and pleasant. "We want to make sure we can provide adequate support for the evacuation effort." General Vextar's 4 eyes narrowed. "Ambassador, Our sensors indicate the construction of weapon systems that exceed standard defensive requirements. Are you building warships? Another pause. General, you requested help with a galaxy-wide evacuation in the face of an existential threat. We are preparing to provide that help. The alien faces on the screen showed growing concern. They were beginning to realize that humanity's idea of help might be different from what they had expected. Queen Zilnara's mandibles clicked nervously. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood in the communication room of the human command ship Incheon's Pride, watching reports from battle groups across the galaxy. On dozens of displays, he could see the systematic destruction of Devourer forces. Each engagement followed the same pattern. Human forces arrived, deployed overwhelming firepower, and completely eliminated all enemy units in the area. Status report from Battle Group 73. Reported Communications Officer Minji. They have eliminated all Devourer presence in the Vega sector. Total time, 4 hours, 12 minutes. Battle Group 115 reports successful operation. In the Centauri expansion, added Technician Wubin, 47 Devourer units destroyed. No human casualties. Hyunwoo nodded as he reviewed the tactical displays. In 3 months of operations, human forces had engaged the Devourers in over 800 separate battles. The ancient machines that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were being methodically hunted down and destroyed. But something was changing. Sir, said Dr. Jin Ho, approaching with a data tablet. We're seeing unusual behavior patterns in the latest Devourer encounters. Hyunwoo took the tablet and studied the information. The Devourers were adapting faster than before. Their technology was evolving in response to human weapons. More concerning, they were beginning to coordinate their actions across multiple star systems. They're learning, Jinho continued. Each time we destroy a group of them, the survivors incorporate our tactical data into their collective intelligence. They're becoming more dangerous. Through the viewport, Hyunwoo could see the Coalition fleet maintaining a safe distance from the human armada. The alien ships looked tiny compared to humanity's warships. Over the past months, more Coalition vessels had joined the combined fleet, but they remained observers rather than participants in the fighting. An alert sounded through the ship. Priority communication from the Galactic Coalition Council. The main display activated, showing the familiar faces of Queen Zilnara, Prime Echo Kelmore, and General Vextar. But this time, they were joined by dozens of other alien leaders. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy were present. Ambassador Hyunwoo, Queen Zilnara began, we need to discuss the current military situation. Hyunwoo could hear the tension in her voice. Of course, Your Majesty. How can I help? Prime Echo Kelmore's crystal body flickered with nervous energy. Our analysts have been studying the recent battles. The weapons your forces are using, they exceed anything in our databases. The gravitational distortions from your larger weapons are affecting nearby star systems, added General Vextar. We've detected changes in planetary orbits up to 50 light-years from battle sites. A new voice joined the conversation. Chancellor Mordeth of the Silicon Confederacy, a being that looked like living metal. Ambassador, our scientists calculate that your fleet's total firepower exceeds the combined military strength of all Coalition species by a factor of 10,000. Hyunwoo remained calm. The Devourers represent an existential threat. We are using appropriate force levels. Appropriate? Queen Zilnara's 6 arms began moving rapidly. Yesterday, one of your battle groups used a weapon that created a temporary neutron star. The gravitational effects destroyed 3 uninhabited planets in a nearby system. Those planets were in the path of Devourer expansion, Hyunwoo explained. Denying them resources was a tactical necessity. The alien leaders looked at each other with growing alarm. General Vextar leaned forward. Ambassador, we must ask, what is the true size of humanity's military force? Hyunwoo paused for a moment. What you've seen represents approximately 3% of our total deployment capability. The silence that followed was deafening. Chancellor Mordeth spoke first, his metal voice shaking slightly. 3%? You mean there are more battle groups in reserve? Many more, Hyunwoo confirmed. We are holding back our more experimental weapon systems until we better understand the Devourer threat. Captain Sora approached Hyunwoo with an urgent message tablet. Her face was grim. Sir, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting massive Devourer activity in the Andromeda approach vector. Hyunwoo read the report quickly. The Devourers were not just adapting to human tactics, they were mobilizing reinforcements. Sensors showed thousands of new units emerging from deep space, far more than had been seen before. It appears, Hyunwoo said to the coalition leaders, that our success has prompted the Devourers to deploy their full strength. Prime Echo Kelmore's light patterns became erratic. Full strength? How many units are we talking about? Conservative estimates suggest 15,000 Devourer units approaching from multiple vectors, Captain Sora reported. They appear to be coordinating a galaxy-wide assault. The alien leaders began talking over each other in panic. This was more Devourers than had been seen in recorded history. The ancient machines were finally revealing their true numbers. This is catastrophic, Queen Zilnara said. Even with human assistance, we cannot evacuate everyone before they arrive. Hyunwoo looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching Devourer forces. They were massive beyond imagination, a metallic tide that could consume entire galactic arms. But instead of concern, he felt something else. Satisfaction. Coalition leaders, he said, please do not be alarmed. This development was anticipated. General Vexitar's 4 eyes focused on him. Anticipated? The engagement pattern we have been using was designed to provoke exactly this response, Hyunwoo explained. We needed the Devourers to reveal their full strength and coordinate their forces. The alien stared at him in shock. Chancellor Mordeth spoke slowly. You mean this was intentional? You wanted them to attack in force? Scattered. Engagements across thousands of systems would have taken decades to complete, Hyunwoo said. By forcing them to concentrate their forces, we can eliminate the threat more efficiently. A new alarm sounded through the ship. Admiral Tae-jin's voice came over the communication system. All human forces implement Protocol 7. Repeat. Protocol 7 is now active. The coalition leaders watched in confusion as the human fleet began moving into new formations. Ships that had been hidden in nearby star systems suddenly appeared, doubling the size of the visible human armada. Massive construction platforms materialized from hyperspace, immediately beginning to assemble weapon systems of unprecedented scale. What is Protocol 7? Prime Echo Kelmore asked. Hyun-woo studied the tactical displays as humanity's true military might began to reveal itself. Protocol 7 is our contingency for galaxy-scale threats. We are deploying technologies that have never been field-tested. Through the viewports, the coalition representatives could see construction beginning on something impossible. A structure the size of a small moon was being assembled in space, covered with weapons systems that hurt to look at directly. Similar constructions were appearing in star systems across the galaxy. Dr. Jin-ho, Hyunwoo called. Please brief our coalition allies on the stellar engineering project. Jin-ho activated a holographic display. The approaching Devourer force is too large for conventional engagement. We are implementing a solution that involves temporarily converting several stars into directed energy weapons. Queen Zilnara's mandibles stopped moving entirely. Converting stars into weapons? The process is reversible, Jin-ho assured her. We will restore normal stellar function after the threat is eliminated. However, the energy output during the UER conversion process will sterilize all planets in the affected systems. General Vexitar stood up from his chair. You're talking about deliberately destroying inhabited worlds. The affected systems have already been evacuated by coalition forces, Hyunwoo said calmly. No civilian casualties will occur. Chancellor, Mordeth's metal body began vibrating. How long have you been planning this? Contingency planning for galaxy-scale threats has been ongoing for several decades, Hyunwoo replied. The Devourer situation provided an opportunity to test our theoretical models. The truth was more complex. Humanity's response to the Coalition's request had revealed something about their own species that even they found unsettling. When faced with an existential threat, humans did not just seek to survive. They sought to dominate. The weapons systems being deployed had been designed not just to defeat the Devourers, but to ensure that no similar threat could ever arise again. Captain Sora received another update. Sir, all stellar engineering platforms report ready status. We can begin stellar conversion in 6 hours. Begin the process, Hyunwoo ordered. All Coalition forces please withdraw to minimum safe distance. As the Coalition fleet began retreating to what they hoped was a safe distance, the alien leaders continued their emergency session. What they had witnessed over the past months was not just military assistance, it was the emergence of a new galactic superpower. They never intended to just help with evacuation, Prime Echo Kelmore said quietly. They're restructuring the entire balance of power in the galaxy. Queen Zilnara's 6 arms moved in slow, thoughtful patterns. The question is, what happens after they defeat the Devourers? Admiral Tae-jin's voice echoed across all communication channels. Attention all forces. Stellar conversion sequence initiated. Multiple star systems are now weapons platforms. Devourer fleet ETA 72 hours. Colonel Dong-hyun watched the Coalition fleet retreat through his ship's main display. The alien vessels moved in perfect formation, but he could see the panic in their flight pattern. They had been running from the Devourers for so long that retreat had become their first instinct. Contact from the Coalition flagship, reported Lieutenant Yuri from the communication station. Queen Zilnara wants to speak with you. Dong-hyun nodded. Put her through. The display showed Queen Zilnara's insect-like face. Her 6 arms were moving rapidly, a sign of extreme stress. Behind her, he could see the bridge of her ship filled with busy aliens trying to coordinate another evacuation. Colonel, she said, the Devourer fleet is larger than expected. We count over 50 units approaching the Kepler 442 system. We must retreat immediately and begin evacuation protocols. Dong-hyun looked at his tactical display. 50 Devourer units, each the size of a small moon surrounded by clouds of smaller machines. It was indeed a large force. The Coalition fleet had maybe 200 ships, but they were designed for exploration and trade, not heavy combat. Understood, Your Majesty, Dong-hyun said. The human fleet will handle the Devourers. Please continue your evacuation operations. Queen Zilnara's mandibles stopped clicking. Handle them. Colonel, there are 50 Devourer units. Each one can consume a planet. You cannot simply handle them. We'll see, Dong-hyun replied calmly. Human fleet, prepare for engagement. The response came back immediately from 12,000 ships. Not the 200 cargo vessels the aliens had expected, but 12,000 warships, each one larger than the Coalition flagship. They moved into battle formation with mechanical precision. Dr. Soo-jin sat at her station on the research vessel New Seoul, monitoring the communication channels between human and Coalition forces. She was studying not just the Devourers, but how different species reacted to extreme threats. What she heard from the Coalition channels worried her. They're talking about total evacuation of 14 systems, she reported to Captain Jiwoo. They want to move 30 billion people before the Devourers arrive. Jiwoo was a young woman with steady hands and calm eyes. She had been chosen to pilot the experimental Planet Cracker mech, a weapon system so large it required its own escort fleet. How long do they think that will take? At their current rate? 15 years minimum, Soo-jin replied. But the Devourers will consume those systems in months. Through the viewports, they could see the human battle fleet deploying. The ships moved into positions that made no sense to traditional military thinking. Instead of forming defensive lines or attack formations, they were spreading out to surround an area of space larger than most solar systems. What are they doing? Asked Prime Echo Kelmore over the communication channel. His crystal body was flickering with confusion. The human ships are too spread out. The Devourers will destroy them individually. Admiral Tae-jin's voice came back, calm and confident. Coalition forces, please maintain safe distance. Human forces are implementing standard engagement protocols. General Vextar's 4 eyes were wide with disbelief. Standard protocols? Against 50 Devourer units? This is suicide. But Dong Hyun was not listening to the Coalition's protests. He was watching his tactical display as the Devourers approached. The enemy machines moved like a dark storm across space, consuming asteroids and space debris as they traveled. Their sensors probed ahead, looking for resistance to crush. All units, weapons free, Dong Hyun ordered. Initiate Plan Overkill. Plan Overkill was humanity's response to the Devourer threat. Where other species tried to fight the machines with conventional weapons, humans had decided to apply overwhelming force to every engagement. If one antimatter torpedo might damage a Devourer, they would use 100. If conventional explosives were ineffective, they would use weapons that could crack planets. The first wave of human weapons struck the Devourer fleet like the wrath of an angry god. Antimatter missiles designed to destroy entire cities hit individual Devourer units. Gravity bombs that could crush asteroids into neutron stars activated throughout the enemy formation. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear as temporal weapons erased sections of the Devourer fleet from multiple timelines. Su-Jin watched the battle through her instruments, recording everything for later analysis. What she saw defied her understanding of military strategy. The humans were not trying to defeat the Devourers. They were trying to completely erase them from existence. "My God," whispered Queen Zilnara over the communication channel. "What are those weapons?" One of Dong Hyun's ships had fired something that looked like a small star. The miniature sun flew into the heart of the Devourer formation and exploded with the force of a supernova. The explosion was contained by gravity fields, but its energy was focused into a beam that cut through a dozen Devourer units at once. "Artificial, stellar collapse weapon," reported Lieutenant Yuri casually. "Standard anti-fortress equipment." The Coalition channels fell silent. Sujin realized that the aliens were beginning to understand the true scale of human military capability. What they were watching was not a desperate last stand. It was an extermination operation. Captain Jiwoo received her deployment orders. "Planet Cracker Unit, you are cleared for engagement. Target the Devourer cluster at coordinates 779. Jiwoo's mech was the size of a small space station, covered in weapons that most civilizations would consider planet killers. She guided it toward the largest group of Devourer units, where 20 of the massive machines were trying to coordinate a counter-dash attack. The Planet Cracker's main weapon was a gravity lance that could punch holes through moons. Jiwoo aimed it at the center of the Devourer cluster and fired. The weapon did not create an explosion. It created a localized black hole that existed for exactly 0.3 seconds. In that time, it consumed all 20 Devourer units and the space around them. "Target eliminated," Jiwoo reported. "Moving to secondary target zone." General Vextar's voice came over the Coalition channel, high and strained. "How many of those mechs do you have?" "This deployment includes 50 Planet Cracker units," Admiral Taejin replied. "Standard equipment for heavy assault operations." Sujin realized that the aliens were asking the wrong questions. They wanted to know how many weapons humans had, but they should have been asking why humans had built such weapons in the first place. The Planet Crackers were not designed to fight the Devourers. They had been built years ago, as part of humanity's general military development. The Devourers were just the first enemy that required their use. The battle continued for 6 hours. But it was not really a battle. It was a demonstration. The Devourers had never faced an enemy that responded to overwhelming force with even more overwhelming force. Their adaptive algorithms could not keep up with weapons that violated the fundamental laws of physics. Dong-Hyun watched the last Devourer unit die under fire from a weapon that turned matter directly into energy. The enemy machine tried to adapt, tried to learn from the attack, but there was nothing to learn. The weapon simply erased the machine from existence at the subatomic level. "All targets eliminated," he reported, beginning cleanup operations. "Cleanup operations?" asked Prime Echo Kelmore. "Standard procedure," Dong Hyun explained. "We need to remove any remaining Devourer particles from the area. Can't risk them rebuilding themselves from leftover materials." What the humans called cleanup involved using weapons that sterilized entire areas of space. They deployed devices that broke down matter at the quantum level, ensuring that no trace of the devourers remained. What had been a battle zone became empty space, cleaner than the vacuum between galaxies. The Coalition fleet approached slowly, their sensors scanning the area where 50 devourer units had been destroyed. There was nothing left. No wreckage, no debris, no trace that a battle had ever happened. How? Queen Zilnara asked. We have been fighting the devourers for centuries. We have lost hundreds of systems to them. How did you destroy 50 units in 6 hours? Colonel Dong Hyun considered the question. Your Majesty, you asked for our help with evacuation operations. But we realize that evacuation is just treating the symptoms, not the disease. The real solution is to eliminate the threat entirely. But the weapons you used, General Vextar said, they exceed every galactic treaty on military force. Some of those weapons could destroy entire star systems. Yes, Dong Hyun agreed. That's why they work. Admiral Tae-jin's voice joined the conversation. Coalition forces, please transmit coordinates of all known devourer positions. Human battle groups will begin systematic elimination of all enemy units. Sujin listened to the silence on the Coalition channels. The aliens were beginning to understand that humanity had not come to help with evacuation. They had come to solve the devourer problem permanently, using methods that terrified even their allies. How many battle groups do you have? Prime Echo Kelmore asked quietly. This engagement used one battle group, Admiral Tae-jin replied. We have 400 similar groups deployed across the galaxy. 400 battle groups, each one capable of destroying 50 devourer units in a few hours. Each one equipped with weapons that could crack planets and create black holes. President Aoun stood in the Situation Room deep beneath Seoul, watching the final battle unfold across dozens of display screens. Each screen showed a different part of the galaxy where human forces were engaging the massive devourer assault. The ancient machines had committed everything to this attack, 15,000 units supported by millions of smaller constructs. Status report, she said calmly. General Mi Young consulted her displays. All stellar engineering platforms are operational. We have successfully converted 47 stars into directed energy weapons. The Devourer fleet is entering range of the first firing sequence. Coalition forces, withdrawn to safe distance, reported Admiral Tae-jin from the Fleet Command Center. All civilian populations have been evacuated from the combat zones. President Da-un nodded. She was a small woman with silver hair and tired eyes, but she carried the authority of someone who had guided humanity through its greatest transformation. The decision to reveal Earth's true capabilities had not been made lightly. Begin Operation Galactic Sanitation, she ordered. Across the galaxy, 47 stars that had been converted into weapons began to fire simultaneously. Beams of concentrated stellar energy, each one carrying the power of an entire sun, reached across space to strike the Devourer fleet. The ancient machines, which had survived for millions of years by adapting to every threat, found themselves facing something they could not adapt to. The coordinated fury of converted stars. Dr. Wu Jin watched from the research station New Busan as entire sections of the Devourer fleet simply ceased to exist. The stellar weapons did not destroy the enemy machines. They erased them at the subatomic level, breaking them down into component particles that were then scattered across interstellar space. Remarkable, he said to his assistant. The Devourers are trying to adapt, but there's nothing to adapt to. Pure stellar energy leaves no patterns to learn from. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 18 hours. One by one, the massive Devourer units were eliminated by weapons that drew their power from the hearts of stars. The smaller constructs that tried to scatter and escape were hunted down by human battle groups using more conventional planet-killer weapons. When it was over, the space where 15,000 Devourer units had existed was empty, not just of the machines, but of everything. Asteroids, space dust, even stray hydrogen atoms had been cleared away by the stellar weapons. It was the cleanest vacuum in the known universe. Ambassador Hyunwoo received the final casualty report. 0 human losses, complete enemy annihilation. He turned to the communication system to address the Coalition forces. Coalition leaders, the Devourer threat has been eliminated. All enemy units have been destroyed. Your worlds are safe. The response from the alien fleet was silence. For several minutes, no one spoke. Finally, Queen Zilnara's voice came through, shaking with something between relief and terror. All of them? Every Devourer unit? Yes, Your Majesty, Hyunwoo confirmed. Our deep space sensors detect no remaining enemy presence anywhere in the galaxy. Prime Echo Kelmore's crystal body flickered weakly. In 18 hours, you eliminated a threat that has plagued the galaxy for millennia. The threat assessment was accurate, Hyunwoo replied. The solution was applied appropriately. General Vextar's 4 eyes were wide with shock. Ambassador, the weapons you used, they reshaped entire star systems. You turned suns into guns. Temporarily, Hyunwoo said. Dr. Woo Jin, please begin stellar restoration procedures. The process of converting the weaponized stars back to normal function began immediately. Human engineering teams worked to carefully return each star to its original state, ensuring that the affected systems would be habitable again within decades rather than centuries. But the Coalition leaders were not thinking about stellar restoration. They were thinking about what humanity had just demonstrated. The ability to treat the laws of physics as suggestions rather than limitations. Captain Sora approached President Da-un with a communication from the Coalition Council. Madam President, they're requesting an emergency meeting to discuss post-war arrangements. President Da-un smiled slightly. I'm sure they are. Schedule the meeting for next week. We have other matters to attend to first. The other matters included the most massive demobilization in human history. 12 million soldiers needed to be reassigned. 50,000 warships needed new missions. The industrial capacity that had been devoted to the war effort needed to find peaceful applications. Except that was not what happened. Dr. Woo Jin received new orders from Earth Command. Establish permanent research stations in former Devourer territory. Captain Sora was told that her battle group would remain on patrol duty in the outer galactic arms. Colonel Dong-hyun learned that his regiment was being redeployed to maintain regional stability. The demobilization that the Coalition expected never came. Ambassador Hyunwoo attended the emergency meeting with Coalition leaders in person this time, arriving on Earth's new flagship, the Sol Ascendant. The ship was larger than most space stations and carried enough firepower to sterilize entire solar systems. Its presence made the Coalition representatives visibly nervous. Ambassador, Queen Zilnara began carefully, we want to thank humanity for its assistance in eliminating the Devourer threat. You're welcome, Hyunwoo replied pleasantly. Now that the crisis is over, Prime Echo Kelmore continued, we assume you'll be withdrawing your forces back to Earth territory. Hyunwoo looked genuinely surprised. Withdraw? Why would we do that? General Vextar leaned forward. The war is over, Ambassador. The threat has been eliminated. This threat has been eliminated, Hyunwoo agreed. But our analysis indicates high probability of similar threats emerging in the future. It would be irresponsible to leave the galaxy undefended. Chancellor Mordeth's metal body began vibrating again. What are you saying? The 12 million human personnel currently deployed will remain on station as peacekeepers, Hyunwoo explained. The 50,000 warships will conduct regular patrols to ensure galactic security. The forward operating bases we've established will serve as early warning systems for future threats. The alien leaders looked at each other in growing alarm. What Hyunwoo was describing was not demobilization, it was occupation. Ambassador, Queen Zilnara said slowly, are you saying that human forces will permanently remain in Coalition space? Coalition space? Hyunwoo repeated. I think there may be some confusion about the current political situation. He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Large sections were now highlighted in blue areas where human forces maintained permanent presence. The blue zones covered nearly 30% of known space. These are the human protectorate sectors, Hyunwoo explained. Regions where human forces maintain security responsibilities. Citizens in these areas enjoy the protection of the most advanced military force in galactic history. Prime Echo Kelmore's light patterns became frantic. You're annexing our territory. Not annexing, Hyunwoo corrected. Protecting. The coalition government remains in place. Local laws and customs are respected. But ultimate security decisions rest with human authorities. General Vextar stood up abruptly. This is conquest disguised as protection. Hyunwoo's expression remained calm and friendly. General, 3 months ago you came to us desperate for help. You faced an existential threat that you could not handle alone. We provided that help. The threat is gone. Your worlds are safe. Your people are alive. At what cost? Queen Zilnara demanded. The cost, said a new voice, was revealing what humans are truly capable of. President Da-un entered the meeting room, flanked by her security detail. The alien leaders had never seen her in person before. She looked small and harmless, but they all knew she commanded forces that could reshape reality itself. Your Majesty, Prime Echo, General, Chancellor, she said, nodding to each leader in turn. I came to personally thank you for the opportunity you provided. Chancellor Mordeth's voice was barely a whisper. Opportunity? For decades, humanity has been developing technologies and strategies for threats that might never come, President Da-un explained. We had theories about stellar engineering, planet-scale weapons, galaxy-wide logistics, but we had never tested them in real conditions. She walked to the holographic display and gestured at the battle statistics. Thanks to your request for, assistance, we were able to field test our entire theoretical military framework. The results exceeded our most optimistic projections. Queen Zilnara's 6 arms trembled. You used our crisis as a training exercise? We used your crisis as an opportunity to discover the true extent of human capabilities, President Da-un corrected. The results were educational. Prime Echo Kelmore spoke quietly. What happens now? President Da-un smiled, and for the first time it looked genuinely warm. Now we build a better galaxy. Human protection ensures that threats like the Devourers can never arise again. Our technology will improve the lives of all galactic citizens. Our military will maintain peace and stability. Under human control, General Vextar said bitterly. Under human protection, President Da-un repeated. The coalition government continues to function. Local autonomy is respected. But questions of galactic security are now humanity's responsibility. Ambassador Hyunwoo stepped forward. The meeting room on Station Gamma 7 was cold and quiet. Ambassador Hyunwoo sat at the long metal table, his hands folded in front of him. Across from him, 3 alien beings shifted nervously in their seats. The air felt heavy with fear and desperation. Queen Zilnara clicked her mandibles together. Her insect-like body was covered in dark green armor that gleamed under the bright lights. 6 arms moved constantly as she spoke, a habit her species had when they were scared. Ambassador, Hyunwoo, we need your help, she said. Her voice was high and sharp, like metal scraping metal. Beside her sat Prime Echo Kelmore, a being made of living crystal. Light moved through his transparent body in slow waves. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. The Devourers have taken 14 star systems in the last month. Our fleets cannot stop them. The third alien was General Vextar, whose blue skin looked almost purple under the station lights. His 4 eyes never stopped moving, watching everything around him. They consume everything, he said. Planets, ships, space stations. They break it all down and use it to make more of themselves. Hyunwoo listened carefully. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple black uniform with Earth's symbol on his chest. He had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Coalition for 5 years. In that time, he had learned that most aliens thought humans were weak and primitive. How many worlds have you lost? Hyunwoo asked. Queen Zilnara's 6 arms stopped moving. 47 systems. Over 200 billion people are dead or missing. The room fell silent. Through the large window, they could see the coalition fleet in the distance. Thousands of ships from dozens of different worlds floated in space like metal stars. But Hyun-woo could see the fear in their formations. The ships stayed close together, afraid to spread out. Prime Echo Kelmore leaned forward. We have tried everything, Ambassador. Our best scientists cannot understand their technology. Our strongest warriors cannot match their numbers. Our fastest ships cannot escape when they decide to chase. General Vextar pulled up a holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy with red areas marked where the Devourers had attacked. The red zones were growing bigger every day. They learn from every battle, he said. Each time we fight them, they become stronger. Hyun-woo studied the map. The Devourers were ancient machines, older than any civilization in the galaxy. They had been sleeping for millions of years until something woke them up. Now they spread across space like a disease, eating everything in their path. What exactly are you asking from humanity? Hyun-woo said. Queen Zilnara's mandibles clicked faster. We need soldiers for evacuation missions. Maybe 10,000 troops. We also need cargo ships to move civilians from threatened worlds. How many ships? Hyun-woo asked. Perhaps 200 vessels, Prime Echo Kelmore said. Nothing too advanced. Just basic transport ships. General Vextar nodded. We know humans are still developing. We do not expect much, but every ship helps. Every soldier matters. Hyun-woo could hear the tone in the alien's voice. They thought they were being kind by asking humans for help. They believed Earth was too weak to make a real difference. But they were desperate enough to ask anyway. How long do you think total evacuation will take? Hyun-woo asked. The three aliens looked at each other. Queen Zilnara spoke first. To move everyone from the threatened systems? At least 50 years. Maybe longer. Our best estimates say 70 years. Prime Echo Kelmore added. The Devourers are spreading faster than we can move people. General Vextar pulled up another display showing evacuation routes. We have identified 12,000 worlds that need to be emptied. Each world has millions or billions of people. The logistics are challenging. Hyun-woo nodded slowly. He looked out the window at the coalition fleet again. Most of the ships were designed for exploration or trade, not war. The few military vessels looked small and scared compared to what was coming. The Devourers, Hyun-woo said. Tell me about their capabilities. Queen Zilnara's 6 arms began, moving again. Each unit is the size of a small moon. They break down matter at the molecular level and rebuild it into new machines. A single Devourer can consume an entire planet in days. They work together like a hive mind, Prime Echo Kelmore said. Billions of individual machines acting as one intelligence. They cannot be reasoned with or bargained with. General Vextar brought up images of the Devourers in action. Massive dark spheres surrounded by clouds of smaller machines. They looked like mechanical storms eating everything in space. They reproduce exponentially. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. The growth is unstoppable. Hyun-woo watched the images carefully. He saw planets being stripped down to their cores. He saw space stations disappearing into metal dust. He saw entire fleets being torn apart and rebuilt as part of the swarm. Have you tried nuclear weapons? Hyun-woo asked. The aliens looked surprised by the question. Queen Zilnara clicked her mandibles. Nuclear weapons are primitive. They would barely damage 1 Devourer unit. What about antimatter? Hyun-woo said. General Vextar shook his head. Too dangerous. Antimatter weapons could damage nearby friendly ships. The coalition banned them centuries ago. Prime Echo Kelmore's crystal body flickered with nervous light. Ambassador, we appreciate human curiosity, but we have tried every weapon, every strategy, every technology. Nothing works. All we can do now is run. Hyun-woo was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the map again, studying the red zones where the Devourers had struck. He thought about Earth, sitting far from the current battle zones but clearly in the path of expansion. You mentioned a timeline of 50 to 70 years for evacuation, Hyun-woo said finally. That assumes the Devourers maintain their current rate of expansion. Yes, Queen Zilnara said. If they speed up, the timeline becomes shorter. And if they slow down? Yunwu asked. The three aliens looked confused. General Vextar spoke. Slowly. Ambassador, the Devourers do not slow down. They have never slowed down. They only grow faster as they consume more resources. Yunwu stood up and walked to the window. The coalition fleet looked peaceful from this distance, but he knew they were preparing for another desperate retreat. Behind him, he heard the aliens whispering to each other in their own languages. He turned back to face them. 10,000 soldiers and 200 cargo ships, he said. Those are your requirements? Yes, Queen Zilnara said quickly. Anything humanity can provide would be greatly appreciated. We understand if Earth cannot spare even that much, Prime Echo Kelmore added. Human technology is still developing. Hyunwoo smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. I will need to contact Earth and discuss this with our leadership. General. Vextar leaned forward. How long will that take? Communication with Earth takes 6 hours each way, Hyunwoo said. I should have an answer within 3 days. The aliens relaxed slightly. 3 days seemed reasonable for such a simple request. Queen Zilnara's mandibles stopped clicking. Prime Echo Kelmore's crystal body grew brighter. General Vextar's 4 eyes finally stopped moving so much. Thank you, Ambassador, Queen Zilnara said. Any help humanity can provide will save lives. Hyunwoo walked toward the door, then stopped. One more question, he said. What's your timeline for total galactic evacuation? Every world, every system, every living being moved to safety. The aliens looked at each other again. This time they seemed confused by the question. Prime Echo Kelmore answered slowly. Ambassador, total evacuation is impossible. We are only trying to save some worlds, some people. Complete evacuation would take centuries, maybe millennia. Hyunwoo nodded. I see. We'll need 3 months to prepare. The room went silent. Queen Zilnara's 6 arms froze in mid-motion. Prime Echo Kelmore's crystal body went completely dark. General Vextar's 4 eyes all focused on Hyunwoo at once. 3 months, General Vextar said. For 10,000 soldiers and 200 ships? That seems like a long time, Queen Zilnara said carefully. Most species can mobilize such numbers in days or weeks. Hyunwoo looked at them with that same slight smile. Yes, he said. 3 months should be enough. He left the room without another word. Behind him, the 3 aliens sat in confused silence, wondering why humans needed so much time for such a small contribution to the war effort. None of them realized they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history.